All right, thanks so much for joining. This is our fifth video or event for our first ever International MBA Day. I am here talking about a day in life of an international MBA student with Hanisha, Rashmi, and Ankit. And Edison just joined us. Edison, you're joining live cold. So, hello. Wait, I'm going to add you to the stage. Awesome. So I'm going to do a quick round robin intro, and then I'm going to ask questions, and I'm sure we'll have a bunch of questions on the chat, and I'm going to throw some of them. So what I want to know from every one of you, what you did before your MBA, what you're pursuing after your MBA, and maybe one culture shock as an international student. So I'm going to go counterclockwise from my screen. So Rashmi, I'll start with you, then Ankit, then Edison, then Anisha. So Rashmi, go for it.
Hey everybody, I'm Rashmi. I'm originally from Delhi, India, and like most Indians, I'm also an engineer. So I did computer science in my undergrad. I worked for about 2.5 years in the tech industry, and then I decided that I wanted to move to the business side of things. So I went ahead and did my PGDM, postgraduate diploma in management from a business school in India, and I was a part of one of the most infamous batches. Called the COVID batch, which was the class of 2021, which was half online, half offline. And that's when I had made up my mind to do a second MBA later. So I was with a subsidiary of Deloitte post that in their marketing and communications function in Bangalore. And I was there for about 2 years. And then I'm at UNC right now pursuing technically a second MBA.
Cool. Can I go next?
Go for it, Ankit.
So, hi everyone, my name is Ankit. I'm from Calcutta. I did my undergrad in accounting and finance and then went on to do a chartered accountancy, which is a chartered accountancy course, which is the Indian version of a US CPA. I worked for a manufacturing company for 6.5 years, did corporate finance and strategy over there. Really liked problem solving. So, thought I'll pivot to strategy consulting, be industry agnostic, learn more about problems I could solve, just fun stuff. Outside of work, I did stand-up comedy. I'm also a writer. Happy to talk more about that if you want. Cultural shock. Everything closes in Durham by 9 p.m. So you have to order food beforehand. Otherwise, ready-to-eat meals are the way to go. Over to you, Edison.
Can you hear me? Sorry, I
Yeah,
think the
totally.
signal is not very good here. So hi everyone, my name's Edison. I'm originally from Hong Kong and Taiwan, and I'm now at Yale SOM. So before MBA, I came from actually a very non-traditional background. I was an entrepreneur before opening restaurants in Asia, and I was also a television host before. And in MBA, actually this summer I work in JP Morgan in their private wealth management sector, and I'm going back to private bank like JP Morgan after MBA in the coming May. And one cultural shock here, I think it's about all the units, right? Temperature, I'm still not getting used to Fahrenheit. I'm still using Celsius right now. So yeah, all of these things are the most biggest culture shock for me.
I really, really hope you keep your metric system in your brain because that's the only system that we should care about. Tanisha, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, I will say keeping the metric system back to what it was is incredibly hard because when you're in the US, you're in that US bubble. But anyways, coming back to my intro. Hello everyone, I'm Hanisha. I'm a second year candidate at the Tepper School of Business at Carnegie Mellon. Prior to my MBA, I worked as a marketing professional. My undergrad was in marketing and music, and I decided that I wanted one to be my passion, one to be the rest of my career. So I pursued my career as a marketing professional in tech for about 3 years before I decided that I wanted to do something more with marketing, essentially try to be in a more consumer facing role, be able to, interact with the consumers a lot more. And so I decided to pivot into CPG or media and entertainment. After coming to Tepper, my first internship that I did, which was this summer, was at Warner Brothers Studios, which gave me a good look into, what media and entertainment and essentially consumer products would look like because I was working on the Harry Potter brand for their consumer products department. So it was a cool experience. I got a lot of really good exposure. And so I am hopefully going to be returning soon. And let's talk about the culture shock that I experienced. I think for me, this is going to sound so stupid, but basically just like passing by someone and saying what's up instead of having a full-blown conversation was my biggest culture shock, because I was just like, what is this? What is this weird sort of interaction that you have with other people where you're just like, what's up? And that's a whole ass conversation, and then you pass by. So I think that was very interesting for me.
Souvik, you're on mute.
Oops, sorry about that. I think the weird part of what's up is like it's not a back and forth. You don't really care for like what that person is gonna say, and that's pretty much it. Which is really strange, because I kind of learned very late in life that the appropriate response to how do you do is how do you do? What? That's pretty ridiculous. Cool. I really want to check in on a similar vein. So Edison, maybe I want to start with you. Tell me the hardest thing that you've had to get used to as an international student.
I mean, I think for me, it's not that really hard, because I think like for Yale, I think we have a relatively high international, like percentage of international students. Here, I think we have like over 30% of international students. So we actually have a very like close community among all the international students, like from China, from India, from other parts of the world. So if you ask me, one of the hardest, it might be the accent thing. Like when I first came here last August, because I studied in the UK before, so I'm more like, and I grew up in Hong Kong, which is actually a British colony, so I was like more used to the British accent rather than the American accent. So when I first came here last year, I think the first 2 months it's hard sometimes to pick up the American accent of my local classmates here.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Ankit, what about you?
Sorry, I missed the question.
Oh, so the question was like, what was one of the hardest thing that you had to go through as an international student?
That's difficult. I think the socializing culture, the fact that there's so much pressure on socializing. I think you were talking about this earlier, that as an introvert, you need to, step out of your comfort zone and just socialize. Otherwise, you'll feel like, oh, hey, like I'm out of the circle, I'm missing out on things. The FOMO is like so real. And dealing with the imposter syndrome, like everyone is like so smart here. You grow up, like at least I grew up in a bubble where I was thinking that, oh hey, like I'm smart, and I got into Fuqua, and then coming here, everyone is like so smart, my classmates are so smart. So just coping up with that and just understanding the different range of perspectives and acknowledging my shortcomings, it has been a struggle. And doing that while balancing, just interacting with everyone, networking, forming like lifelong connections. That is something that I'm still getting used to, but it's good exposure, so I'm not complaining.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think, something that was kind of ringing in my head when you said about everyone is so smart. I also think that, at least in America, there is a perception of being able to talk about yourself, being able to articulate your thoughts a lot more clearly
Yeah.
and briefly, I guess. I think there's a lot of like building the perception of how smart you are, which doesn't help imposter syndrome. So I totally hear you.
Yeah.
Rashmi, what's
Yeah,
your
and
take?
I forgot to talk about the culture shock that I faced when in
Yes.
my introduction. But yeah, I think for me, it's not like I wasn't aware of it, but it was pretty much the food, because even at company presentations, you're given burgers and pizzas for lunch, which is very different than the food that we have in India when you say the word lunch. So I think yeah, it was that. But I think the hardest thing, and coming from a country like India where there's a lot of focus on technicalities and you knowing the hard skills, so to say, is much higher. Over here, it's more about the soft skills like networking. You mentioned being able to talk about yourself, so selling your own story, storyboarding, storytelling, all of these skills. It's much more valued over here than it is in India, because it's like saying, okay, in India, if you know if you're technically very sound and you have decent communication skills, you'll sail through. But I don't see that being the case over here. So I think the fact that if you've grown up in a different country where there's a lot more focus on technicalities, then trying to adapt to this kind of a culture can be a slightly daunting task. But if you have supportive seniors and peers and mentors and people at your B school, because we're in a B school setting right now, who can really help you understand and navigate through this shock, then it'll be much easier.
Yeah, no, makes total sense. Anisha, what about you?
I think for me also, I think especially because I'm from where Rashmi's at, I'm also from New Delhi, India, kind of like very used to the workplace, work environment over there. My biggest challenge, and I'm going to try not to repeat what other people have said, I think was networking, getting out there, talking to people in a way where you're essentially trying to, extract value, but you don't know what that value is. You don't know how to position yourself. You're trying to position yourself as a candidate. You're also trying to get to know what their experiences are. I think workplace networking, or just like professional networking, was something that was a very new concept for me coming in here. That wasn't the way that I'd gone about kind of going about jobs in the past. And so it was very interesting to go through that recruiting cycle and experience what professional networking means, how that's very different, how small talk is essentially like an intrinsic element of it, which is, again, a more American concept than you would realize. And so just being able to understand those concepts and like understanding and kind of finding your footing within what's a good balance between not sounding robotic, not sounding, I want to say too casual, too conversational, was definitely a learning curve for me when I came here. And I feel like that was part of that culture shock because, like I said, small talk tends to be more of an American concept.
Yeah, small talk's pretty brutal. I went to Michigan, and Michigan's a pretty football-focused school, right? I know a lot of my Indian and even Chinese friends took like lessons in football. Well, not like lessons on the field, just understanding the game so that they could talk about football with other people. That was crazy to me. Like, I still don't know anything about football. I'm just not into sports in general.
I think that's so funny that you say that. I was going to say that specifically with a lot of the women at Tepper, what we'd experienced was that not a lot of people knew about golf. And throughout the summer, everyone would talk about golf. So we literally had a learn to golf clinic session recently where people actually learned how to golf and actually like learned more about it. Again, as part of that small talk.
Damn. Yeah, that sounds fascinating and also really hard. So I think one of the things that you guys didn't talk about, which I found quite challenging, was how effortless people were with their finances, and not just American students, but also international students. Like, people would go to like Japan on like a 3 weeks notice, which, I mean, even if I could afford to do, I just wouldn't, because that's just not something that I am used to. And also, I was funding my entire education on like student loans, so I constantly thought about, I constantly punished myself, but also that's like a mindset issue. But I wonder whether any of you went through that or have like a back of the mind, rational voice of how you think about money and finances. Don't need to pick on anyone, but curious.
I'll start. I think so. You mentioned that Souvik, you were funding your entire degree, which is also the case with a lot of internationals, and scholarships do help, but then it's more about the figuring out your living expenses also, because then they become an important part of your entire course. So initially when I moved here, and this was something that my parents and friends back in India had warned me against doing, and they said, stop multiplying everything by 83, because you'll not be able to survive if you multiply the cost of bananas or apples or ketchup or everything by 83 before spending, because then you'll not be able to buy anything. And it took a while for us to get used to the fact that portion sizes over here are so huge that things are going to last you for the entire year or at least half a year. So it's good to be prudent with finances, but then when it comes to things like career treks, networking events, conferences like National Black, Forte, all these places, then I would say, we probably have to get out of the mindset a little bit, because those are things that are going to facilitate your job search. So the long-term payoff can be higher. And it's about being myopic versus being or having a long-term vision. So I would say that, yeah, it's good to be prudent with finances and to track. I actually honestly do have an Excel sheet called expenditure where I update my expenditure every month and I track it.
Right.
And I also have a few friends back in India, similar to who have a background similar to Ankit's background, who actually track what am I spending on. And maybe one of them even volunteered to probably build a financial model out of it, saying, okay, this is where you spend more and this is where you need to cut down. So small things like eating out or, spending on drinks, food. I went to the NC State Fair yesterday. That cost a lot. So yeah, I think these things can be helpful. But in places where you really are expected to spend, I would say please don't cut corners over there.
Yeah, I have a similar experience. Like, I think the first 3 weeks of being in Durham, I just used to multiply everything and convert it into Indian rupee. But then eventually you just stop. You're like so tired of it. You're just like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. So I totally agree. And I do have an Excel sheet as well with like really specific, trackers to just track my monthly spending, because I did corporate finance before. So naturally comes in very handy. But what Rashmi said, I totally echo that. And on top of that, I would just like to add that you would like to spend on the trips that you make with your classmates, because these are the people you ultimately connect with in the long term. And even in like, in a myopic sense, you would want to form those connections because these people help you with assignments. You case with these people. Once casing starts, these are the people you have to go to, and then these are your support system, right? So you need to find your crew, and trips help a lot. So Duke has this tradition that after the summer term, we go to Myrtle Beach in South Carolina for some reason. I don't know why, but that trip brought me closer to my classmates because we just trauma bonded over the things we saw in Myrtle. So yeah, I mean, I would have loved to not spend money on that place, but the connections that I got out of it, that's like invaluable. So try to think of it in a broader sense of things, that in the long term you'll probably be earning more and you'll just recover this cost in like a couple of years once you start working. So just from that perspective, yeah, that's all I had to add.
Myrtle Beach sounds like an effective ROI trip for sure. Anisha, you were saying something.
Yeah, I was going to say, I definitely echo Ankit more than anything else. Like, same things, have a budget I have a tracker that I've been using to track budget for almost years because I did my undergrad in the US as well. So already have been in that mindset. Another thing that really, really helps with being able to, essentially, I want to say not, cut a lot of costs and be able to live your life the way you want is also seeing if you can get some sort of like part-time jobs. There's a lot of TA-ship opportunities, like being a teaching assistant. There's a lot of different avenues. So again, sounds crazy. I promise it's not that crazy. I have 3 part-time jobs right now. 2 of them are basically very similar to the leadership roles I'm doing. So it's not a lot of work, but my 3rd one is basically me being a teaching assistant. And it helps, right? Because going back to Ankit's point, you don't really come to B school for like, I don't know, the courses or like the educational part, like that does help and support in some way. But essentially you come here and what you take away from here is that network of people that are going to, essentially make a pitch for you in the future. If you want to go into like a different industry or a different company or just like be your lifelong support system in your network. So being able to get that time with them is more important than anything else. And so when it comes to taking trips with them or spending on events that the school might be hosting or any of those other avenues, going out to lunches, going out to dinners, having that extra money on the side that you may be generating through part-time jobs really helps. And I feel like in terms of managing my budget and my finances, that's something that has been a valuable investment in terms of time and effort for me. So I would definitely recommend whoever's like thinking about B school to also see if there's any sort of on-campus part-time opportunities that interest you that you're able to make the time for.
And those exist, by the way. Like, often people don't research enough, like I did not. So I learned about graduate assistantship at Michigan. And it's a pretty rigorous thing to be able to get into. But if you do, your MBA gets paid for. So not only you get a stipend, but you also get a fellowship, which is, like really, really awesome. I want to pivot to like a day in life sort of a situation. Like, we often get this impression that business school is really really difficult. You work like 18-hour days. because you just have so many things to get to and your calendar is always full, blah, blah, blah. So I'm curious how much of that is true, especially like I'd be curious. I don't, Anisha, I think you're the only second year student here. I'm not sure. Edison, are you a second year student or a first year student?
I'm a second year student now.
Oh, perfect. So I think I'm curious about. I think I'm curious from both of you because I think Ankit and Rashmi are at the stage right now where they want to do everything, right? So I want to get their calendar too, but I'm curious. Maybe I'll start with Edison. You first. What does your calendar look like today?
Okay, so actually today it's actually quite special because it's our semester break like this week. But like usually, I think it depends on the person themselves, because I mean, like, I'm a second year and this year I'm actually I'm busier than my first year, which is not a very usual case here, because I mean, like, for some students, if they are re-recruiting in second year, they might be like less busy in the academic side while they focus more on recruitment. And I think it's everyone's choice. Even for first year, like some people, they might prioritize like recruitment, casing, all those stuff, while some people, they want to learn more and they focus more on the academic side. Like for me, because I've got my return offer this year, so I mean, like, for my second year, I want to focus more on the academic side. Especially here at Yale, we can actually study like different courses, not only in the School of Management, but also taking courses in the college, in other graduate schools. So for this semester, I am actually taking a lot of courses in the college, in Yale College, because I didn't come from a technical background. I know nothing about coding, but I'm always interested in learning about computer science. So I actually took like 2 computer science courses, right? And so I think, like, for me this semester, I have been focusing on a lot of academic side, and my schedule is like I started my day every day 10:30 for a Japanese class, because I'm actually going for an exchange in spring semester in Japan. So right now I'm learning Japanese. It's like 5 days a week, and I also have like 3 to 4 courses every day in the School of Management as well as at Yale College. So this semester I've been quite busy, like starting from 10:30 till like 4 or 5 every day in school, and after that I'll be focusing on my homework and of course like social with friends, with other people here at Yale. But for me, like second year, I'll be like less focused on recruitment and more on academic. But like for some people, it might be opposite. They focus more on recruitment, social, rather than academic in their second year.
Yeah. By the way, this happens, like, especially if you have a return offer, then it kind of dawns on you that, you could like relax and just let it go and just chill. But also, this is like the last few months where you don't have to actually work for a living. So it's actually the last few months where you can get soaked in as much as you can and really do what you want rather than do what you're supposed to do to get that job. Anisha, how's your calendar looking?
So I basically live off of my Google Calendar. Like, you have to have an appointment on there like a week before, because it is something I quite literally live off of. And that basically comes from wanting to be as involved as possible and be able to meet my expectations and goals, but still being able to have a semblance of time for myself, which is why my Google Calendar is really important to me. I'm going to add one more element to what Edison mentioned in terms of academic versus recruiting. There's a trifecta, actually. It's academic, recruiting, and then clubs, because clubs happen to also form a very intrinsic part of your MBA experience. For instance, I'm the admissions officer for the Graduate Business Association, which is our student government. So I'm essentially looking at our recruiting pipelines, not really diving deep like the admissions office, but I'm helping with certain special projects to make sure that our recruiting pipelines are targeting, all across the world, all across the country and all that stuff. Outside of that, I'm on the board for 4 different clubs. So for me, my majority of my time ends up going into that particular bubble of the trifecta, where I want all of my time to be involved with different clubs, because that's how I want to create impact. Outside of that, the second thing I'm prioritizing is recruiting. But luckily for me, what's going on right now is that recruiting timelines that I'm looking for marketing, they're different. So my timeline really ramps up in January. So this entire these 2 minis or the semester that I have, I really get to do whatever I want to do with clubs and academics. So that brings me to the third trifecta of being able to take really interesting courses. I recently took a design course, which was essentially for PMs. It's called Human Computer Interaction, where you essentially get to understand how to create a prototype for an app, like how to essentially like add a new design element to it. It has been so interesting taking a course like that this mini. I'm taking something similar next mini. I also am taking piano lessons and I'm taking an art class. So essentially, to kind of wrap it up, what I'm trying to say is that it really depends on where you're at with your current I want to say priorities, because recruiting could be a priority for me right now. It's not because of timelines, but it also depends on how you want to optimize your MBA. If you want to do more club work, you do more club work. If you want to focus on academics and want to take away whatever you can take from it, that's essentially what you end up doing. But the best way to optimize like doing everything, but at the same time being able to keep a sanity check, is really, really living off of your Google Calendar. And also, please try to see if you can have regular therapy sessions, because that's something I love about Tepper. We all talk about therapy all the time, and it's something that essentially is like, I don't know, in a way encoded into the DNA of people that work and play hard. So
yeah, I mean, I didn't have therapy in school. Maybe I should have, but I would replace that with sleep. Like we needed to prioritize sleep, because it is very, very easy to not sleep a lot because you want to do all of those things, and suddenly you're like the example of Barack Obama before and after the presidency. So you don't want that in the 2 years of business school. All right, Rashmi, Ankit, I'm sure your calendars look like shit, but tell me more about how your calendars look like today or in general.
Sure, I can go first. So I am the admissions representative coordinator, and I'm the interviewer for MMS and MQM programs at Duke. So that's something that I'm doing. I'm also the first year cabinet member for the Ally cabinet at Fuqua Pride, MBA Service and Sustainability, and Fuqua Vision. So I mentioned that I did stand-up comedy before coming to Fuqua. Fuqua Vision is this sketch comedy club where we basically make fun of investment bankers and every weird thing that our classmates and seniors do. So really into that. Yeah, as Hanisha and Edison said that, you have to balance all the socials, acads and recruiting, and it's a difficult thing. So one thing that I really try to do is put everything on my Outlook calendar, be it classes, be it meetings, be it dinner with friends. Everything is in my calendar, so it really helps me just keep a track of what I'm doing and be mindful of, just taking out things, just shelling out time for everything that I'm trying to do. But yeah, coffee chats are brutal, man. Like, I'm the only person in a suit right now because I have a coffee chat after this. So that sucks. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty easy if you learn how to use a calendar. I also have exams next week from Thursday to Saturday, and I'm planning on going to the NC State Fair as well, Rashmi, on Saturday evening. Hope I don't spend as much money as you did, but yeah. So that's pretty much it. But yeah.
That sounds fantastic. I think your calendar looks pretty good for a first year student. The coffee chats can be brutal. I don't know if you guys still do like click races for coffee chats. Like you have to
Yeah.
be online at a specific time. That's unnecessarily brutal. But all the
Yeah, we
best.
do.
Coffee chats
We do.
are
We do. And
coffee chats are
you,
needlessly stressful. So, but all the best.
yeah. But one thing that Duke has is a summer term. So that kind of helped me acclimate to the process that, the first week, the whole month of August, we just had classes and assignments, and it just helped us get into the mode that, oh, hey, we are back at school. So having that prior to the whole recruiting
Yeah.
cycle starting, that was really useful.
I just want to make a really quick comment.
Mm.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go for it, Edison. We are very much out of time, but go for it.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, I just want to make a point that, like, for cultural shock, another thing for me, it's about coffee chat. Like, because I mean, like, from APAC in Hong Kong, I'm not sure about India, but at least like in Hong Kong, like when you apply for jobs, like usually you just submit your resume and it's a very standardized interview process. Well, here in the US, it's so different. Everything is about socialing, networking, coffee chats. I think this is also something that like potential MBA students, especially from Asia, be aware of.
Yeah, we don't do that in India either. So, and also coffee chats without coffee sounds ridiculous. But
Right.
awesome. I'm getting pings like we are desperately out of time. But I had a great time chatting with all of you. You're all welcome to come back to the GMAT Club YouTube channel, and we can have a deep dive in the conversation about how you're doing. So please reach out. And also, please ping me on anything that I can help you with. But thank you so much, Rashmi, Hanisha, Ankit, Edison, for coming here, spending 30 minutes with us, and have a great rest of your day. And
Thank
all the
you.
best for your first-year students and your second-year students. Have fun.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
so much.
Thank you. This was really fun. Thank you.
Thank you.